All right, so welcome everyone. Good afternoon for those who are in the afternoon time like me, and good morning for many of those who are living their mornings. I'm Banu. I think some of you know me and some of you read my bio from the email you got. I'm a psychotherapist, focuser, as well as a psychologist who works with communities and is a lay philosopher, likes to pretend she is. I love philosophy, obviously, also, especially Gendlin's. And I wanted to have a conversation based on my interactions with Katerina and Lynn and the things I've been thinking about. I wanted to have a conversation about something that is a part of our lives and I think is worth talking about more. And so today the conversation is going to be about the oddness that is a part of our lives and we don't quite know how to make sense of for some of us. For others of us, it might be at the center of how we view the world. And hopefully it's going to be a fun conversation. And excuse me for my voice. I think it's better now, but I have some kind of upper respiratory infection. So I might need to cough. My voice may sound nasal. Thank you for your understanding. And I guess we can start with a little attunement. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit. And then I'm going to ask you to do some internal reflections. We'll do some breakout rooms and a group discussion. Unless someone has an objection, I'd like to move on to our attunement for today. So allow yourself to just take a couple of deep breaths and stretch if you need to. Whatever it takes to get yourself centered, grounded, more in your body. Allowing your attention to contact more of the space you're in contact with. Just letting your breathing slow down and saying a little hello to everything that you're noticing without judgment, without trying to change anything, just noticing and letting yourself settle into a space where you're just open to the more. You can let my voice drift in the background. And just let yourself sense everything that you're connected to. In your body, in your immediate environment, in your thoughts, just in your being. And allow yourself, if that feels okay, to sense yourself as a part of that intricate tapestry where so much is going on without you doing anything about it. And emerging into the moment that you're in touch with right now. And notice if there's something a little surprising, maybe something unexpected. That's wanting your attention. And if so, you can say hello to it. And if it's okay, you can bring it to your attention, the intention to be open to the more and the whimsical and the surprising aspect of being you. Maybe it's something you're living privately. Maybe some of it is something you share in the world. Whatever that is, just invite that into the room with us. That might include your spiritual experience of the world, or just anything that doesn't quite fit. And is inviting you to something else. So you're allowed to be just a little weird today. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes if it feels okay and come into the group. And just bring the more with you. So thank you for being here. And I'd like to talk a little bit about what we consider strange or anomalous in our daily lives. And I wondered what it was like for you when I invited that whimsy in your life, the more and the other. And at any moment, feel free to write anything popping in your mind in the chat so I can also check. And so this is going to be about all of us connecting to whatever that more is. So let me know when and if you're ready to hear more about my thoughts, since I'm the one that invited you. I got a couple of nods. All right. And you don't have to agree with everything I say. This is my experience and my research, and then we can chat about it. So, especially in the Western mindset, we have created a world that is material, that has certain physical laws, and that operates according to certain principles. And on top of that, we added the psychic world, right? There's the material and there's the psychic. And to explain how that we as humans don't quite fit into the material world that we are describing for ourselves. So we have the level of the psychic, and they're both brilliant. They do a lot of things for us. And when I say psychic, I mean in the psychological sense, like the inner world of psychology. I don't mean mediums yet. And what we also know is that we have experiences that don't quite fit into this worldview. So as a person, by the way, I grew up in Turkey, then I was in US for 20 years and 18. Well, I'm still back and forth in the US, but I'm very well educated in the academic sense. And I also grew up with these two worlds, right? My family was very pragmatic, and my mom would say in Turkey, people are afraid of jinn. Some people, she'd be like, jinn are just microbes, and people didn't know about, viruses and bacteria. And that's what it is. And it helped me because a lot of what we consider strange is also very scary. And at the same time, she would say, pray because it feels good for you. And if there's a God, then you're better off praying than not praying. You know the idea. So we have this whole other, not quite understood aspect of life that doesn't quite fit into the rational. And we've been wrestling with it. So I'm going to make the proposition that it's actually what we consider anomalous is quite normal, because almost everyone has experiences that don't quite fit into the rational. And I also want to make the point that in other cultures that are non-Western, in the old sense, this is a normal part of life. Like I only recently been to Brazil, but I have a friend from Brazil. They're like, it's normal. You have, people have psychics and experiences and surgeries without blood, like nobody quite questions it, or many places in Africa, that it's a part of life, you don't question it. So we have this dual experience. And even in Turkey, we have this sort of rational, educated thing. And then, someone that has dreams that come true, right? Or I have an aunt who used to read coffee cups really well. And then her husband passed away and she saw it in a coffee cup and then she stopped reading it. And nobody questions that story. Because at one level, that that's true. So I'm not interested in whether or not that's true, whether or not that's real. That's a whole nother conversation. But just pointing out that we have these odd experiences that either come to us, and I'm sorry, I'm going to speak more from the Western mindset mostly, or the one that I'm the most familiar with, or they either come to us unbidden, and there are some that we seek because we find that this world doesn't quite work for us. So many of us practice meditation, or we are into our religious practices, and that becomes a part of how we see the world. But we still know, even in the religious world, like there were miracles at one point, but they don't really exist anymore. Or I remember when I used to work at an inpatient hospital, we had a nurse who was very strict Catholic, and we'd have patients who were manic and who saw angels and talked to angels. And people would always tease her of like, you kind of believe them, don't you? And she's like, maybe, right? There's this in between that is relegated to religion, which stays sort of epistemologically in this very questionable way, but we accept that. And then there's all this in between, like synchronicities. That became a common word. Does anybody need me to explain what that is? Anybody hearing it for the first time? I assume everybody's familiar with that term. And thanks to Jung, who followed some of his unbidden, or maybe bidden, visions and experiences, tried to develop a worldview that was able to talk about phenomena in a way that helps us share. Okay, we call it a synchronicity, something meaningful happens. And then some of us actually seek them, like I said, through religion, or now through a lot of young people are really into psychedelics. Not to be ageist, I mean, a lot of people are, but we're really seeking different ways of being, because we know what Gendlin would call the unit model way of seeing the world, this materialistic and cause effects way of seeing the world isn't quite cutting it. So am I making sense so far? Okay. So I divided them for ease into three categories. One is the unbidden. There's a coincidence that happens. You don't believe in this stuff. And when it happens, you're like, it's just a coincidence. But then maybe it's meaningful for you. Or you have a dream that you didn't ask for, or somebody else had a dream. Or you had an experience that came and that you can't quite explain. And I have a fun game. Whenever I meet a person or I go to a new place, I ask, what are the stories here, and have people experienced anything that's unexplained? And if I go to like a village, a community, and usually people will at first be like, no, and then they'll come up with a bunch of stories. And I recommend you to try that if you have any proclivities. So we have the unbidden that we have in our lives, and then we have the ones that we cultivate, the ones that we invite in some way, and then the ones that we seek. I think I messed up my category. Hang on just 1 second, because I'm also developing it as we're thinking. There's something else. Oh, there's the unbidden outer, the unbidden inner, and the sought. So the unbidden inner is something else, and that's the peak experiences that you have unexpectedly. And the ones that we have, moment of gratitude, something that you feel, right, that you experience. There's the outer ones, a weird, something you hear a voice, something happens, and I can tell you a couple that are kind of freaky. And then the unbidden inner, which is this moment of just joy, beauty, connection. And it can happen, like sometimes good philosophy makes me feel that way, like the whole world's shining. It could be, you've probably familiar with the peak experiences. It could be in many different ways. It could be love, all this stuff. And then the sought is when we cultivate them through psychedelics for a lot of people nowadays, or meditation and yoga, and devotion, contemplation, all this stuff. So today I'm going to invite us to think about that for a minute. And I'm going to ask you, if you will, hoping most people have a pen and paper with them. And I apologize for not asking you to get any. And if you'll take, and if you don't have them, just think. If you'll just take a few minutes, like 3-4 minutes, just quietly, write whatever's coming up based on what I said. You can think of any weird memories you had or any like little anomalous experiences that came unbidden, especially inner or outer. And I'll just keep time and I'll let you know when it's 1 minute left. And this could even be connected to your focusing experiences, just sensing something more, whatever that is. And I want you to take a minute just to write how it feels to think about these or even name them for you. Like, what does it bring up? For some people, it might be great, nothing. Some, it might just be uncomfortable. Yes, Marvin. So seems like most people are done, and I'm going to ask you to come back to the room and notice how it feels. And I'd like to hear from 2 people, if that's okay. We don't have to go into detail, but what came up for you and what's it like naming it for you? And I'm going to ask you to, yeah, I might, if it goes really long, I might ask you to pause it for now, but I want you to share as you wish. Did I see a hand? You can raise your hand on the screen. We have few enough people, or you can do the mechanical hand. Diana or Diana?
So several came up for me. I don't know if you want to actually hear them. One was I had a visitation from oh, a, an energy or a being that I recognized to be Miriam, uh,
Oh,
not knowing really much about who Miriam was. And there's more to that. And then I was playing a flute, my flute, actually not my flute. Picked up a flute at a powwow once to test it out or something. And I had this experience of a very short green person dressed in green walking by me and saying, as I was playing, and he said, "Oh, you're playing Miriam's song."
Wow.
Nobody else saw him. And so that was one very powerful experience. And there are others. And you asked about how I feel bringing them up and naming them. Actually, I felt a little. What's the word I used? I wish I could remember more. I feel like I wrote several. I wrote like maybe four things that popped up for me, and I thought, oh, there's probably more. Aren't I a more interesting person than that? I mean, anyway, that's what came up for me.
Okay, so you shared with us two moments, and that were pretty powerful for you. And what I heard is that you don't quite know what to make of them. They're there and they're important. And it's maybe a work in progress dialogue. That's what I sense. I don't know if that's true or there's more to say about that. And I want you to hold on to that for now. And also that when you wrote it, you were like, I have more. And you even used the word interesting, like feeling like this makes me a more interesting person. There's something about it that makes us also feel a bit more human sometimes. Like there's more to us, right? And four is plenty, and it's not a competition. But at the same time, thank you for sharing that, and that makes a lot of sense. It's going to connect to the next thing I'd like to share. And is it Diana or Diana?
Yes,
Which one? Both. Okay,
Diana or Diana, whichever.
Diana. All right. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else would like to share? Lynn wants to share, I think. Lynn, yes. You're muted.
Yeah, I love the invitation. What came to me is experiences that are that one would think of as kind of ordinary, but that seem miraculous to me. Like I'll be very discouraged or upset or something when I go to sleep, and when I wake up and I'm greeting the day, the right thing will come to me. And it's for focusing people kind of ordinary thing that it has to come, Jane says, and it comes, the next step or something. But it feels like such a miracle to me that something that was so closed after sleeping on it and then sort of waking up, it just comes. Oh, it's like this. So I think to me the focusing process is quite quite quite
Magic.
miraculous. And I actually love the word miraculous, but the things that I thought of were not things that people would think of as miraculous, like what happens in a group when everything is scrambled and blah, 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 and then somebody will say something and then everything comes together and this feeling of touching. I mean, that's so amazing. And it's almost like catching a little spark of divine something or other.
Right. And Marvin used the word grace. I think you sent it to me privately, Marvin. But yeah, I think in Christianity, people talk about it. And I don't know enough about that word, but grace, I like that word somehow. And that's what came up when I heard you, Lynn. I don't know if that fits. Like it's this, or what seems ordinary. There is something very magical in the ordinary, and which I agree with you. That's part of what inspires me. Even in focusing, something happens. We take it so much for granted. You just focus and something happens you couldn't have expected and brings a new possibility. That's wild in a sense when you look at it. And I can't make it happen, I can allow it to be happening. I can do something about it. I can prepare myself for it, all this stuff. And so that's in between that sort of sought in a way when we do doing focusing. But then when you're living in a particular way, Lynn, it's also unbidden. When you wake up, something happens and it's miraculous. And it's also quite normal because you know that's how life tends to work. And it's still surprising and miraculous at each moment. And you appreciate that. Am I getting you, Lynn?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I just want to say that I love the word grace. It's kind of, for me, it means what you're saying, that it's something that you don't earn, that you don't effort for, and it's this life force that just is
Right. And that's
inherently, yes.
right. And I just found out I knew the word bereket in Arabic, and I come from a Muslim background, not practicing. But I just recently looped around to that word and found as a Sufi word, barakah. Some of you probably know more than I do about this. Is it's probably barakah or something. Is about something like grace almost, but it's something that God or whatever hands to you, and it's not about how much you're doing. It's about, we usually use it casually to mean abundance, but it's this grace that's given that brings a gift to what you're doing, like an abundance to it. You could be doing something small, it could be multiple, like the loaf of bread. I think I know in Jesus's story. I'm so sorry, I'm not good with religious stories, but some of you are going to be familiar with it. In every tradition, you have this idea of something happening from something that seems very small. So identifying that, maybe to me, this is talking about how our reality doesn't quite work in this linear way. There's something else and there's something more. And to this group, I don't have to keep reiterating this. And that we know, we feel it, we sense it, and we're living, some of us are living in multiple worlds. And I can also hear some of you being like, but this is make believe, this and that. So here is what I'd like to invite you to. Forget about the truth of it or the falseness, because even sometimes people will go from saying, okay, this is how, let's say Lynn's experience, not that Lynn, you would do it. Okay, so in the morning I'm having this thing, so that means I have an angel showing me the way, or that means I'm a chosen person, or God's showing me the way. I interpret it. It's the same mentality that's very literal and concrete that can go into these experiences, right? Which is where you go into psychosis sometimes. Like in the psychotic experience, there's something happening. And as some of you know, psychosis can actually be a spiritual emergency for a lot of people. But when we take it too literally, it makes us crazy. And there is this in-between space that we're holding. And I don't want to claim that this is, I think in a lot of Jungians will talk about, as a psychic reality, I forget the term right now, but it's in between, and you don't necessarily assume anything, like the UFO phenomenon are actually psychic projections. We're trying to explain and make sense of it. And I'm going to ask you to hold off from that right now, for now, that this happens. Oh, by the way, I know, Liz, you're into you're a psychoanalytic person, and there might be others. There was a whole book it's in my library in the US about psychoanalysis and the occult. And a lot of analysts started noticing, and if you're a therapist, you'll also see that something's happening in the room. You can call it intuition, this or that, but odd things happen. Like something happens in your life that mirrors what's happening with the patient and blah, blah, blah. And there's a whole big thing to it. I'm not going to get into that. And we say it's the unconscious is connected. So we try to explain. And I'm saying maybe we don't need to explain it so quickly, but just notice it for now. And the reason for this, the way that it connects to our focusing world, I think, I'm just sort of bringing what I think is going on, is seeing the world from a process-oriented way, from the unit model to the process way, really opens us up to also seeing that something's happening and it's interactional. It's an interaction. So I might be experiencing an angel, or like Diana, you said you experienced a green person. It was in your interactional space. I completely believe you, and I can't see it at that moment. And we also know that whatever experience we have, if we treat it as potentially dangerous and harmful, it can be really upsetting. And if we treat it as something to be curious about, it can be completely different. And there's even a theory that what people call aliens and what people would call angels are the same phenomenon. And it makes a lot of sense to me. And I was even talking to someone, actually, interestingly enough, some of you might know Harville Hendricks, who used to work with Gendlin. He does imagotherapy, the founder of imagotherapy. I was talking to him last week, and he was talking about, he was a minister first. And he said he was still a materialist, even as a minister. And then he learned about quantum mechanics. And then he noticed what people call God is very similar to what's being described. So now he made a decision to actually accept that. And so we can make decisions as big explanations. I forgot the connection, but I think you're following me better than I'm following myself at this point. But yeah, it's how we interact with something determines it. And at the same time, I want to make a little warning based on my research. There is this belief that anything that's visiting any like anomalous experience, let's say you're not psychotic, you're having something, is a good thing. Not necessarily. So if you're into this kind of stuff, just also make sure, just like you wouldn't open your door to anyone that's knocking, just because something isn't of the physical reality doesn't mean it's something to be welcomed. And not to scare you, but just, that's a whole nother conversation we're not going to get into. But we know that being open to this stuff makes life better in some way for most people. It makes being human more bearable. So that's all I want to say for right now. And I'd like, if that's okay, to break us into breakout rooms.
Benno, maybe we need to
we'll
do
continue.
the discussion first, and that will bring people into the more of their own experience. That's what we usually do, but it's completely up to you.
So my sense was we could go into breakout rooms where people could share freely in a smaller group, because usually if we open it to all, only a couple of people share, and then we can share. But how does that feel to everyone else? Are you okay with going to a short breakout group and then coming back?
Yeah,
if I may say something.
Sure.
I may say something from it's just from what Lynn said. When people interact for a few minutes together before the breakout rooms, it allows for some kind of appropriation.
Okay.
And perspectives and so yeah.
So you find that maybe let's do a few at least comments before we do the breakout room.
Let's do just a couple, and then we'll do the breakout room. Then we'll have a discussion.
Perfect. I mean, we could probably do this for hours, I imagine, but yeah, in terms of time. So Marvin, is there something you'd like to share then?
One thing that came was missing. When we experience something of a nature that looks like, whoa, have a chance, the baraka, the grace, whatever we call it, to have a chance, I'm being gifted or graced. And then there's that missing when you try to repeat and it doesn't come back, and a fight starts, or a loss of faith in self sets. Yeah.
So it can feel good when it's there, and then it creates a missing, it creates a longing that can lead to a struggle that doesn't work, and then it creates a disappointment and loss of faith sometimes for us. So that's
just like sport. There's tennis at the moment, Roland Garros, and a player of 17 years old was in a moment of grace, and he played a tennis that was like, whoa. It lasted 10 minutes and then it was gone. It was gone. And he lost so much.
Right. Yeah. And I want to say something briefly about the peak experiences. There's a guy called Colin Wilson. He's dead now. Maybe some of you are familiar with him. If you're into this stuff, definitely look at his things. And he, I can say so much more about him, but he had a dialogue with Maslow about peak experiences. Maslow was very, does anybody need, should I explain Maslow and peak experiences real quick? Maslow's a psychologist. You know about the pyramid, but he had a lot more to say. And I don't think pyramid was something he did, by the way. It was later made up. But he researched peak experiences, these experiences that seem out of the ordinary in ordinary people. And then later, towards the end of his life, he was more interested in plateau experiences, which most people don't know about. But he was very insistent that you couldn't make them come. And Colin Wilson had a different thought, and he talked to him. He said, and I think Maslow talked about when the students talked about these in class, they started having them more. So Colin Wilson just pointed out, you can't make them come, but if you talk about it, you're more likely to have them. It's because it's changing how we attend to the world. Our attention is the space in which things happen. And thank you, Katerina. Anyone else would like to say something before we go into groups? Eric?
This is kind of in process, but I think it's related. I have a tendency in groups to be influenced by family of origin material, like feeling like I'm not enough or I need to be affirmed. And so I talk too much and I share too much. I take up too much space. I'm aware. And I contemplate this, especially in relation to this group, because it feels the most like family. So of course it generates all that. And I had a wonderful dream last night where a female figure who was kind of zoftig, kind of big and comfortable, made love with me very literally and very openly. And so I have a Jungian background, among others. I woke up deeply satisfied, and I'm contemplating, how can I go to the group and not kind of act out the way I do in terms of my path? And I thought of something from my Tibetan Buddhist background, which is to rouse the energy of the implicit, which it isn't really a doing, it's more like an allowing. And I felt a little estranged from formal practice in my Buddhist tradition, because I don't like religion particularly. But well, I have my own excuses. But since I woke up, I've been just resting in this rousing. What is it? What is it's more like curiosity. I'm not trying to do it, but I'm here with this deep sense of ease and peace. And even though I'm talking now, I don't feel desperate. I don't feel a pressure. And
the quality is different.
It's just interesting to bring, like, this is right now. This is my process right now.
Thank you for sharing. That's beautiful. At least to me, it's beautiful. I enjoyed hearing it. Thank you, Eric. And Mary.
Before the breakouts, I just wanted to share that now we know from research that part of what the psychedelics do that is helpful is it opens up our young learning windows for temporary periods of time.
So it opens up our young learning windows, which makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Because there's the wonder, right? That for a young brain, without judging, without classifying, you have this openness that for good and for bad, it can be, you know.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to work through, all the things we learned. But yeah, so it opens us up. Beautiful. Thank you. So now let's go to breakout rooms, if that's okay. We can have 4 people. And if you don't want to go in the breakout rooms, I think you're supposed to write. I don't know how you usually do this, but I would like you to, even if you're quiet, I'd like to invite you to go anyway. And if you don't have any interesting experiences or anything to share, it doesn't matter. And please, if anything, that perspective is more than welcome. And when we get back from the group, I'd like us to just have a more open discussion. And there's a couple of other points I want to make. And then we'll wrap up today. Am I doing good so far, Lynn and Katerina? Are we? Okay, in terms of time and everything?
Absolutely, yeah,
All right,
in terms of everything.
good.
What time should we come back, Benu?
How about I'm gonna be starting again 1/4 past.
Okay.
And if you tend to be quiet, share. If you feel the move to, if you want to be silent, you can, of course. And if you tend to talk a lot, and Eric, thank you for sharing. Practice stepping back a little bit. If that feels right, you don't have to. Sorry.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey, welcome back. So let's hear a little bit from what it was like to be in groups and if anything is bubbling up. So take your time to just check in. Oh, actually, there's a poem I am going to share with you in part, and then we're going to share the whole poem later. And for you to listen, it's so wonderful. It's one of my favorites. And I just want to maybe read the first stanza. And before we get started, it's called Sometimes a Wild God. It just says, sometimes a wild God comes to the table. He's awkward and does not know the ways of porcelain, of fork and mustard and silver. His voice makes vinegar from wine. And it's a bit different than the tone of what we've been doing, but sometimes things appear as a wild God for some of us, just a little moment of inspiration, and then we'll share how you can listen from the poet's own voice. So, what was it like to chat with each other? Let's open it up a little bit.
And let's remember that this is a conversation, and we want to hear how you experience this quirkiness of life moving forward, the nature of life being more than the unit model, whatever you have to say, and that we're going to say it to each other.
And if you're unsure, there's something, but you don't know if you want to share, I'm going to invite you.
I want to share something that I don't want to share.
Okay.
Good idea.
So you can't see this because in Zoom, you don't get to see what's in front of me. But my desk is covered with all sorts of things. It's a big mess. And when you said, I didn't tell you about paper and pencil, sorry, whatever, that was no problem. The paper and pencil right here on my desk. I got it. I was able to write things down. And what I wrote down at that time was that if I had cleaned up my desk, and when I do clean things up, I don't know where things are anymore. I would not have been able to find the pencil and paper. If I clean things up, I lose things. So, however, it's more presentable for other people. And that also means something, which I'm not even going to mention. I'm going to ignore that. So you're going to have to think about that by yourself. But
Lovely.
the crossing of cleaning things up is the same crossing as explaining things. That
Right.
to explain things, you lose all sorts of experiences of the world.
Right.
You can't find them anymore because however, you can talk to other people about it because you're speaking the same language now.
Right. So you gain something, you lose something.
Yeah.
And sometimes something happens when we talk to other people, though, that is also interesting.
Well, we tried to organize it so that Liz and I would be in the same breakout room. And we ended up with just us in the breakout room. So our organization gave us what we started with because we were already in the same breakout room before we organized it that way.
Oh, so before saying
But trying to
anything.
control it, we ended up with what we started with as opposed to something new.
Right. And it was a coincidence that you end up in the same breakout room.
No,
No. Okay.
it wasn't a coincidence. We controlled it that way.
Oh, you controlled it that way. All right.
And nobody else joined you.
That's right. Because we couldn't control them.
Right.
I'm trying to control them now and I'm failing.
it brings up how many different interpretations there are of the same data
Right.
without my going into that further. I was also thinking of, I don't know, I was getting too mathematical about it all. Okay, so it's like we, on the one hand, in the process model, this is probably wrong, what I'm going to say, is that we want the things that we think of as extraordinary within the unit model to, in the process model, be thought of as more ordinary, just because it would be a new model. So then, do we really want to call these things miracles anymore? Because it's, in other words, if there's this small circle unitish, these are shorthand, obviously, unit process, right? You have a small circle, and anything outside of it is special, a miracle, I was visited by a spirit, whatever, right? Okay. If you do that, then you're still kind of stuck in a unit model. If you're willing to take the plunge and widen the circle, then what was a miracle, so it's, but and then, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And it also has to do with something, I don't know if this is the same subject or another subject, but it has something to do with, okay, we got Western and we got the Enlightenment, and we like the Enlightenment. We didn't want to be medieval anymore. We didn't want to be like quote unquote primitive tribes in Brazil. We like our germ theory. We like our vaccines. We like our logic. But then we keep going. And then some people say, oh no, we went too far. Now we love our Brazilians we love our spirits who are coming to us. We romanticize, we idealize. We say we went too far. So then we have another problem, which brings us back to the first thing, which is it special, the thing, or is it not, yeah. So I remember being at parties and there might be 25 people and somebody would say, I can't believe it. I was talking to this woman. We have the same birthday. Would you believe it? And I'm thinking, there are only 365 birthdays, and you have to jam in millions, billions of people in those 365. Sometimes you're going to be in a room and you're going to meet somebody and they have your birthday. Now, is that, it felt like a miracle to a lot of people in the room. To me, it's like, as you said before, Banu, coincidence. But a coincidence isn't this wacky, crazy thing. It's
it happens.
That things are not, more narrow, maybe, it happens all the time. So I don't know what I'm talking about, basically, but it's just a feeling of, do we need to be special? And yes, we need things to be magic and special, but what is that? That, I guess that interests me.
Understand everything, then you can't change anymore because you already understand everything. And you go to therapy and you already know all your problems, and then you're stuck for years because you already knew everything.
Right. So I'm going to pause you right there and see if this helps. Liz, I first want to mention the wrong thing. Like I'm going to say wrong. I don't like that word. It may not be precise or accurate to somebody else, but it was something meaningful for you. And that's what we're interested in. Precision is a different conversation. And what you're talking about is, to me, it's a form of foreclosing. Like we have these experiences now, we call it a miracle. Or for a lot of people, if they have weird experiences, it makes them more Christian. lately you can see that a lot, especially in this, new group of people. There's this push towards Christianity because things feel really overwhelming. They have some paranormal experiences. That becomes the explanatory principle. So we have both. We would like to have a way to explicate and understand everything that makes us feel safe and protect us. And which is what we call the enlightenment. That's a very questionable comment, right? It's an enlightenment of sorts. It helped us also cope with the world as it is and improve certain things. And we overcorrected. And now you're saying we're overcorrecting again. And process model in itself doesn't say all of this is normal. I don't think Gendlin talked about this stuff. But what I had done in my dissertation was actually, it was funny. I looked at moments of change in dialogue, kind of like the shifts in focusing, that what happens, there's something in there that's not explained by the unit model. So I agree with you. What seems that a lot of the things we take for granted and can't really quite talk about or don't notice becomes more visible once we see the world from a different point of view. Not necessarily, we don't have to say miracles mean I'm chosen by God. Like Lynn was talking about, to me, a personal aspect of her thing, like she experienced it. And I think phenomenologically, there's something real about that, and humans have done this for thousands of years. And people who live in different circumstances have a different relationship to these experiences. And yeah, we're overcorrecting. And at the same time, I'm not here to foreclose that here's the interpretation, but that this is happening. And one option is to fit them into another category or test it with, like I can't replicate it in the lab, so it's not happening. Or it's just a coincidence you thought of your friend and they called you. It might be. So there's a few different ways to look at that. And I'm saying, bring it on. But calling it a coin, maybe it's a miracle. How do you know? It's still a way that we're foreclosing on possibilities. And Lynn, I'm hearing you want to speak.
I want to quote Stephen Adler, and I don't know who he was quoting. And he said, either everything is a miracle or nothing is a miracle. And I do think that the idea of something being extraordinary or supernatural or special in that way is about an attitude. When we're talking in the unit model, then everything is true or false. But when we're talking about process and humanness and experience, it's about how we receive it. And when we look at something as being meaningful, and it's inherently meaningful, that's how we're, I don't like the phrase hardwired because I don't think we're machines, but that's inherent to us, is this sense of meaning. And I think this sense of the extraordinary is inherent also. And the extraordinary can be, oh, they had exactly the kind of cappuccino I wanted today or something. It doesn't have to be, I think that Gendlin's philosophy, if I were going to sum it up in a couple of words, I would say that it's a philosophy of the more. It's a philosophy that what we think of as superhuman is very human. Extraordinary is extraordinarily ordinary, and ordinarily extraordinary or something.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. It's beautiful.
So Lynn, it's a kind of a pivot, or in other words, it's extraordinary and it's ordinary at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised when I think of my friend. One way to look at it, I mean, I'm not wanting to go into the foreclosing, but then I'm not surprised when my friend calls me when I think of them. It could be a coincidence. Maybe I think of them a million times and they call me, but sometimes, it's not. It happens. So maybe we're interrelated, because it seems like the world's interrelated in many ways, and things tend to co-arise, and there's something. So I don't have to attribute meaning into it, but it's ordinary. And it's extraordinary. And the position I take is I'm not foreclosing on it, and I'm just knowing there's more to be explored. But let's
What
hear
I
from a
was
couple.
interested, I'm interested in human motivation and desire. So what I wanted to know as you were talking, I wanted to get in there for a second. I'm sorry if it was interrupting, but I was really, really interested at this certain pivot point where you said that the friend is calling and you don't know, is it a, what
There's
is
a
that?
synchronicity,
But
whatever.
what
Yeah.
I want to know is, I mean, it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, you want to believe that something more is going on. That's the impression I get with all of these experiences, that we want them somehow. It's exciting. And so I'm interested in on the human level.
Yeah. What's
What
happening
does that mean to
psychologically? So
you?
you're interested in that. Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
So Liz, if it's okay, I'm going to ask you to hold that. And
Sure.
I would love to have a longer conversation about this. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say I'm necessarily wanting it to mean something. Some people do. Sometimes I don't, and it happens anyway. But it's easy to me. It feels like an easy thing. You want it to mean something, so you believe it. It's fine. And we can even get, and then sometimes people don't want to believe it, and they don't. There's also motivation works both ways. So let's pause that for now. And I have even like research data on this, but let's hear from a couple more people about what was evoked for you in the breakout rooms and or from the conversation we've been having right now. Marvin, I think you.
I'll try to say two things. One is magic or mystery. It's infinite. So whatever we get to know about it, we just get a glimpse of it. It's infinite. In 100 years, in 5,000 years, we'll never get to it. It's infinite.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side is attachment. What we attach to, I'm not attached to knowing because then it's hard to let go. Some are attached to exploring, some are attached to trying.
Or just experiencing. Right. There are different motivations and different ways of orienting yourself to this stuff. And not knowing is the attitude that you like, and it makes sense to me personally. Thank you. Any other thoughts, feelings, responses? Let's take a couple more. I'm feeling drawn to you, and if please tell me to back off if it doesn't feel right. Like Alistair, it seems like you've been gesturing. I don't know if that's true. And like maybe there's something you want to say. Is it okay if I ask you?
Oh, sorry, no, I was just doing other stuff. I'm just
Okay.
listening in the background.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
You see, so talk about motivation, Liz. Like I'm interpreting, I'm checking. I was completely off. Who knows? Maybe in another dimension, he actually wants to talk. Anyone else who wants to share, or do you want to hear a couple more points that I make and then we wrap it up for today?
Let's allow a silence, because that pause, we're going to feel into, well, what do we think of this? And is this touchy-feely weirdness, or is this really Jean's philosophy?
Or neither.
Well, neither, or both, or and.
Dot.
Right.
And maybe the edginess of the silence helps us dissolve having any points to make at all.
I like that phrase, the edginess of the silence that we experience together.
There's the experience part of this, right? That we can't put into words. Like Jim was saying, like if we do put into words, we can put something, but we can't quite get across. And that's the human. You can live it, you can sense it, you can act from it. And some of this is just experience. So does this silence feel enough, Lynn, or would you like to wait a bit longer?
It feels enough. I didn't mean to take over there.
No, it's okay. I'm more than, yeah, it felt good. So we're coming to the end of our time. If that's okay, I would like to make a couple of points. And I know it's in such a short time, we're putting into the same bag so many different things. And I'm trying to pick the most relevant part of this. And Liz, if you want to continue the conversation later, I'd be happy to talk to you personally. But there's the question of, is it real or is it not? Boom, boom, boom. If we go there, there's actually, even in the experiments, there's meta studies experiments that have studied ESP in the lab, there is an effect. And very legitimate people have done this. It's not necessarily replicable in the way we think, but there's an effect. And I took it to my friend who was very staunchly anti-religious and materialistic, and he didn't want to look at it. And he first asked for the diploma of the person, what school they're from, and then he didn't want to look at it, which was fine. And now he's dating a woman who's asking me for a psychic for a woman who wants to talk to her dead mother. So love makes people do weird things. The other point is when we stick to our theories too much, like even germ theory, Liz, look up what happened to the guy who first talked about hand washing. Nobody wanted to believe him because it didn't work for how doctors saw themselves, and people kept dying, even though they could demonstrably show that you could, reduce women's deaths who were giving birth. Look up this story. It's very interesting if you don't know it. It's sad. And I would like you to also notice the continuousness of this, of like, where does the psychological end and the paranormal begin, or the spiritual? I think they're all in a continuum. And that's why I like Colin Wilson, because he was a guy who didn't go to college, but very smart, became a bestseller in England in the 60s. About existentialism, and then somebody paid him money to write a book about the occult, and he didn't believe any of it. And then as he was doing the research, he became convinced that actually there was something there. And then he took that and he connected that to the existential search for meaning, the human sense of connection, and did sort of overarching work. And because he wasn't an academic, I think he was more creative, and has written like 150 books on all kinds of stuff. And I think he's done a beautiful job of showing how they're continuous. And that's what I also like. We're not going to process philosophy because it supports what we want. This is not what Gendlin intended for his work to do. But once you do start seeing the world as interaction first, a lot of things become visible, and a lot of things become possible, or what's possible starts to be making sense in a different way for me. And it's not, you don't have to go there for the philosophy, and Gendlin's not the only one. Whitehead was a big one. Even Spinoza, there's a lot of philosophers who did the more process level of working, and also Buddhist philosophy and Hindus, the Eastern philosophies were already there. So it's not something just Gendlin came up with out of nowhere. And I just like the idea of opening up to something more and noticing how our attention limits us. And I wanted to share that with you. And I want to share an example. When I was working in the earthquake zone in Turkey, I was working in a city where there's a lot of spiritual and religious devotion, but they live it in a very daily way. It's like where the esoteric and the exoteric meet. And they kept talking about this place where Khidr, who was a prophet, met Moses, and he was Moses' teacher. I don't think he's known in Christianity, but he's in the Old Testament and in Islam. And I kept asking them, I'm like, how do you believe this? Because it doesn't make sense. Is this where they met? But their timing didn't meet, and Moses had his wand. I'm like, I kept trying to understand how they believe that. And then one day when I was asking these questions, it suddenly hit me that the way they're processing reality isn't literal historical truth. And it's not just fake belief either. That they're sensing into a way of reality. To them, it's just as real, where Khidr and Moses met there. And it's very hard, it's very trippy. I can't explain it to you in words, but all of a sudden it opened something in me. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I laughed at myself, at my ignorance. So for a lot of us, I think just at least noticing and being willing to say, maybe that's a miracle, maybe that's ridiculousness, but whatever is happening, and also including the experiences. I know we're putting them all in the same bag, but somehow they're connected. This experience of meaning, because humans, we keep searching for meaning for whatever reason. We keep searching for connection. We are already interconnected in so many ways. And we keep searching for experiences of gratitude and love, and they make life worth living, even in reading a good book. So to me, that's continuous. That's the kind of magic that's very precious. And that is continuous with other things. And if that's coming your way, it's good to be curious about it. And if you have a spiritual practice it fits perfectly with, more power to you. And I think atheism is also a spiritual orientation. If that's the way that you'd like to work, that's fine. But whatever it is, having at least noticing the phenomenon and being curious about it, and realizing that if we look at it from a process way, I don't necessarily have to answer if it's an angel or a demon. Or sometimes I do, pragmatically still. But just having a little more magic in life and being open to it is a good idea for our mental health, as well as just the act of being human. And that's all I want to say. I think, do we end at 1:45?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So Mary wanted to say, Mary, do you want to?
I had a question for you. Do you experience or picture the continuum as a linear continuum or a circle or a sphere or something else?
Continuum. I don't picture it. That's a good question.
Okay, gotcha.
It's somehow, if anything, it's something like this.
Okay.
And it's something like this and something like that. And there are people who do. I think Ken Wilber does a good job of just writing it down, and I find him too much, and I respect him. And there are others, by the way. One thing, if you're interested in this stuff, Michael Washburn talks about the ground, the dynamic ground, ego and the dynamic ground. For those of you who are more psychodynamically oriented, it might be interesting. And it's sort of like Gendlin's implicit, although it's not. And he talks about how ego is formed out of it and then resists it, and then it comes in. And that's where the Wild God poem came from too. Let me just read the last couple of stanzas. And then I recommend you check it out, because also there is an intense part to this. We're talking about the continuum. Sometimes meaning calls us, and we don't want to listen to it because it's not convenient. And so, by the way, he does such a better job of reading this. Please listen from his voice. But when the wild God arrives at the door, you will probably fear him. He reminds you of something dark that you may have dreamt, or the secret you do not wish to be shared. You do not want to let him in. You're very busy. It is late or early, and besides, you cannot look at him because he makes you want to cry. The fox in your neck, and the snakes in your arms, and the wren, and the sparrow, and the deer, the great unnameable beasts in your liver, and your kidneys, and your heart. Sometimes a wild God comes to the table. He's awkward. and does not know the ways of porcelain, of fork, and mustard and silver. His voice makes vinegar from wine and brings the dead to life. So that is all I have to share, and I think we're only 1 minute over our unit model time. And there's always more.
Thank you so much,
much.
Banu.
Thank you very much.
Thank
It's
you.
really interesting.
Yes. Yes. See you next week, everybody.